Welcome, everyone. I wanted to invite everyone to join me today on an exploration of rapport. Let me ask you a question. How easily do you get rapport? Is it automatic or is it just kind of random like me before I learned some of these tools? So that's the question for today is what is rapport? How do we do to maintain it? And how do we go deeper and try to really get to know someone as we proceed forth here? So wanted to begin with just what's the basic definition of rapport? And it has been defined as a friendly, harmonious relationship, especially a relationship characterized by agreement, mutual understanding, or empathy that makes communication possible or easy. So I wanted to ask you guys today why, why do we want to study rapport? What is it? Why bother, right? What's the importance? Well, I wanted to share a little story about myself. I like to joke. I was born in a barn and raised by a pack of wolves. My family had poor communication skills, and as I went out of the house and into the world, into education, debated as an undergrad, did debate, I noticed, hey, you know what? I was outgoing, right? But I really didn't necessarily have the tools. So I went on a journey, an exploration, on like, how do we do this and who's good at it? And so sometimes you might be awkward or out in these kind of strange places. And it's like, well, what do I do? Well, there's actually a set of tools that you can use to gain rapport with a local or native, as I like to say, and really plug into your environment. And we'll get to the reasons why that works so well here in a minute. But before we go much further, I wanted to ask, what happens if you get rapport easily? Wouldn't your life be a little bit better? Can you imagine a scenario where, man, if I'm easy like that, I get rapport like that, snap of a finger? Sounds pretty great, doesn't it? And then the next question is, what happens if we don't master this skill? I'm going to speculate that life is harder that way. That if it's random or it happens sometimes and doesn't in others, and I can't quite figure why, that's not so great, is it? So what we're offering today and why you want to pay attention to what I'm saying, I would like to humbly suggest I've accumulated data and the cutting edge science and neuroscience behind what to do to gain rapport and what to keep in mind when you're doing it. So before we go much further, I wanted to talk about the hidden force. There's an invisible force out there that we need to take into consideration when we're talking about rapport. The first one I want to talk about is human needs psychology, and just a little bit to kind of give us an overview of why that's important. So think about when you're meeting someone and think about this as a background. So behind their head, you could even say, okay, here's a checklist. In human needs psychology, there are 6 human needs of certainty, uncertainty, significance, growth, connection, and finally contribution. So what we can do is when we're moving through the world and we're trying to get a feel for someone, we can even use this as a checklist back in the background and say, well, that seems like that. Yep. And it seems like the top 2 of a person's human needs are typically their drivers in life. So for example, I am a relentless learner, and I really want to have my own business. So it may be fair to say I have a significance and growth as my top 2 tops. And having your own business seems kind of uncertain, right? So certainty is not a big a priority for me, as an example. So just wanted to throw those out there. And by the way, we are recording this, and we do have a mind map that will be available if you want to come back and take a quick look at this. We are going to move fast here because we have a lot of ground to cover. And speaking of a lot of ground to cover, I also wanted to introduce the Fate model. This is a model by a gentleman by the name of Chase Hughes, and he kind of pulled it together. And it talks about the evolutionary psychology and what's driving human behavior. And so how do we survive it? Like, think of caveman days. How do we survive? Well, we have to have focus, right? If we're not paying attention and there's a saber tooth around the corner that's going to have us for breakfast, then that's not good, right? The next one is authority, meaning if there's a tribal situation and we're not syncing with the tribe or getting along, then that also can be a huge problem. And then of course the tribe is the next component. It's like, okay, we have to have a tribe to survive. And think about in your business world or in your day-to-day life. If rapport is there, how much better does it go versus when things are out of sync? Right? It's pretty important, isn't it? So if you're in sync with the tribe, things go really well and you can do great things, and life is just more fun, right? And then finally, there's the emotional component. Everybody has the emotions that they're driven by, and hopefully mostly on the positive here. So this is just a backdrop. This is the hidden force behind when we're trying to get rapport. I would want to suggest to you that this is really way more important, and I don't think you just don't find this stuff everywhere. This is something you have to really go on a deep dive to figure out, okay, this is what's driving everything. And it's quite a revelation for me, and I hope you'll find that too. Speaking of Chase, I wanted to introduce a couple of things on the who category of what we're dealing with. Just some more thoughts behind what is driving everything. And Chase was, this is 6 Minute X-Ray by Chase Hughes. This is a great book. I highly recommend. Everyone is suffering and insecure. That's law number one. So just know everyone you meet, no matter what you may perceive, everyone has these things going on. So first and foremost, everyone is suffering and insecure. Everyone is wearing a mask. So everyone is putting on a face, right? So behind the mask, there's something going on. The third law is everyone pretends not to wear a mask. So they want to front that they're, okay, I'm authentic. This is completely me. There's no disconnect, but that's just not the case. And finally, everyone is a product of childhood suffering and reward. So there is something from age 0 to 7 is the most formative time for someone, and something in there is driving their behavior in terms of suffering and reward. So that sets the backdrop for the discussion today. And then I wanted to talk about real quickly about the law of 5 and the law of 150. The law of 5, just to kind of, again, reiterate why this is so important. We're the average, and this is according to Jim Rohn, we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So you can imagine if your goal is to be a real estate entrepreneur and all you do is spend time with people that, fish at the lake every weekend, it's kind of off, right? What are the chances if you hang out with them for the full time and you never get in the sphere, if you will, of the people that want to invest in real estate? Makes it a lot harder, right? So I think on average, this has been really a true type of statement. This, I don't know if there's ever been any data or study behind it, but as a practical matter, I believe in the law of 5. The next one I want to talk about is the law of 150. This was by Judy Robinette, penned this in her great book about being a power connector. The law of 150 is basically saying that's what you should target as a max size of your tribe, if you will. So if you're trying to accomplish things in business or what you're trying to do in terms of managing a business, it's really anything above 150 in terms of a broader tribe is really just too big to manage. So you want to keep that in mind as you're going forward. Okay, before we go on to specific strategies on how to get rapport, wanted to talk a little bit about the effect of persuasion. Now, I have a big thesis for you guys, and this is kind of a mind-blowing mind shift for me. And I hope you guys feel this too. One of the things that was holding me back from getting rapport was not anything anybody else was doing, but it was about my own programming and own thinking. So think about that. Our own thoughts and own map of the territory or reality is what's holding us back, right? It's how we think and project into the world. We get back that energy that you're giving out there. And it sounds a little woo-woo, but I think you'll, if we test this, and we'll see that that's quite possibly the case. And then another consideration that I wanted to have you guys think about before you launch into a big meeting or into an important, like even socially, if you're looking for a spouse, for example, or you want to just date and you're looking to meet people, think about your state before you go. What do you do to get ready? And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is thinking in terms of power postures, and wanted to introduce these if you haven't seen these. These are fantastic. So for example, basically the Superman pose. If you're having a bad day and things aren't going well, imagine if you just stopped for a second and said, you know what, doggone it, I'm Superman, and you take that posture, and what does that do for you? So I encourage you to try that sometime. The next one is victory. What's that like? That's awesome. And then the next one is the hands on hip stance, like I'm the boss, applesauce. What do you got to say about that? And then of course, one of my personal favorites is the, leaning back on a chair. Yeah, life is good. And when you put your arms like that, for some reason, and I've experimented with this a little bit myself, I find that as well. So this is another key thing before you go out into big meetings you could consider as like, well, what am I doing to prepare myself for that activity? And so this is one of the tools that I was thinking might be really helpful to get us into that situation. The next one, guys, I want to introduce to you is uptime and downtime. Uptime means I'm kind of more present in the moment. And then downtime is I'm inside my head or thinking about what's going on. So you can actually think of this in terms of focus. What am I focusing on? Am I focused on the external world, or am I caught within my own thoughts and thinking? And so just consider that too. Am I being present in the moment, or is my focus really scattered? And think about that in terms of how things move forward. All right, guys, this is the one I'm really excited to share with you. This is a neuro-linguistic pattern. I didn't mention that before, but I am studying neuro-linguistic programming. And on the process of my certification, we really have a chance to develop a pattern for you here. And this is one I hope you really like. So if you could, and you can do it with me, just go ahead and relax now, or in just a second, loosen things up, take a few deep breaths and focus, kind of take in that energy for a minute. Okay. And if you would think about that relaxed feeling and really think about the character of that relaxed feeling. Where is it in your body? So you identify it. Where is that feeling at? And this is where it gets interesting. If you notice, it might possibly have a rotation to it. If you notice it, it'll either be spinning forward or spinning back. Is it spinning forward? Spinning back? What do you think? If you can pick up on it. Have you got it? That relaxed feeling, which direction is it going? And so the beauty of this is, once you have that direction, you can change that feeling. If you want to have more of the feeling, you can test it and see, what if I run that back faster, faster and faster and faster, faster, faster and faster, more and more relaxed. Or if it's a feeling you don't want, you can do this same exercise with an unwanted feeling. Where do I feel that feeling? Well, I don't want that. You can invite it out by going in the opposite direction and spinning it faster the other direction until you don't feel it. Spin it both ways and see what happens. And then step number 4, think of a purple dog or cat. Okay, I just wanted to break state for a minute there just before we go into the next step here. This time, I'd like you to think about a time you were in deep rapport, when you were in a happy, connected, maybe been with a family member or some great friends out in town, and we're really having a great vibe. Everything is really, really fun and connected. Think about that feeling. Now that you've got that, think about that feeling and then find out again, where is that feeling in my body? Where's that spinning at? And if you notice the spin, you can do the same thing with this feeling. You can spin it faster to make that, oh yeah, really connected. That feels good, doesn't it? And now that it's at your disposal, what would happen if you, before you went out into the world, you were already in that state? Interesting thought, isn't it? What if I'm already in that frame of mind before I go out? And before that big meeting or before that big presentation, I already have that feeling of connectedness. Okay, now here's the book. I'm going to go a little woo-woo. I admit it. This one's a little out there for me even. I think it was a little interesting. I'm still not sure what I think of it, but I wanted to see and encourage you guys to try it and see if you have a similar experience. Think about that feeling again. That feeling of connectedness. Okay, and imagine you're going into the room of the person you're about to meet, negotiate with, or try to become a partner with. In terms of even dating, I think this would be really great. But what if we imagine that feeling of connectedness that we already have, and we imagine a tunnel going out to that person and enveloping them before we even meet them? The neuroscience behind this is based on mirror neurons, and this is just a thing to test. I don't have any data to suggest this works or not, but I encourage you guys to try it. I'm interested to see how it goes with myself. So kind of an interesting thing to work with going forward. All right, now we're going to switch down to the when real quick. Just for purposes of what we're trying to do, this is another important aspect of doing rapport type situations is, okay, time. What is the time cost of meeting me? So if I'm meeting someone randomly, what is that time cost? That's in the back of someone's mind sometimes, right? So if they're like, oh, I see you, you're trying to be friendly, but I don't know if I want to spend this time. So one of the things you can do to ease someone's mind going in is a false time constraint. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk long, but I wanted to say hello. Or I'm sorry, I need to go feed my dog in a little bit, but I just wanted to come by and say hi. So introducing the false time constraint will alleviate that fear in the back of their mind of, oh man, I don't know if I want to do this or not, or interact with this person. I'll get in a conversation and the next 2 hours go by and I am bored out of my mind. I don't want to invest that amount of time in someone. This is a way to alleviate that fear before you go in. The next one is a big one. The concept of calibration. What are we calibrated to what's going on in the situation? This one I'd like to talk about. Okay, if I'm seeing a wake in this funeral home, it's probably not appropriate to go up and start telling jokes at the wake, right? May or may not, but probably not going to go well, right? So in terms of calibration, I just wanted to consider that also in terms of what's going on. Is our behavior in line with what's going on socially? And just wanted you to think about that as a consideration. And then the next one
I will
is,
say, dang it, that happened to me actually. I was at a wake and I don't know how we got into humor, and I started laughing kind of loud, and then they looked at me like,
kind of like,
hey,
oh,
you shouldn't be laughing. And
probably not great.
that sat wrong with me for like a whole week.
Yeah.
It still kind of does, and it's that, yeah, that's then, dang it.
Yeah, calibration is a big one, and I think for me that one took probably a fair amount of time to get down pat. Sometimes it's just like, oh, wait a minute, they don't always appreciate my sarcastic sense of humor, so I need to know when to do that and when not to. That's a great point. All right, guys, before we go much further, I wanted to introduce the Tote model, and basically what Tote does for us is give us an idea of how to think about things. So when you're trying to get rapport, there is the my initial goal. Okay, my goal is to be in rapport with someone, for example. So that's my initial goal. So what happens if I go in and I'm not getting it? So that's the real question. And what I'm really trying to suggest is having a mindset of, well, we're just going to try different things as we go on here. This is test, operate, test, exit. So I just want to introduce that as a potential mindset. Okay, when I go into a rapport situation, am I testing it? Just be prepared that, okay, it might have to try different things. And that was the main point behind introducing this model. The next thing I wanted to introduce is, this is according to Igor Ledovsky, a fantastic hypnotherapy trainer and coach. What are some of the things that are important to rapport or barriers from it? Do they feel physically safe? Is one of the most important things when you're trying to get rapport, and what could improve or harm you depending on how the situation goes. Does their social status feel threatened? So remember back when we were talking about the tribe, this is where this comes into play. Is their social status threatened in any way? That's going to make it hard for them to be in rapport if they feel like, oh man, I can't do this right now. My status might decline if I continue to do this. And you can think in terms of maybe like you're trying to talk to someone but who has a taskmaster boss, right? If you're trying to gain rapport with them and they've got a pile of 17,000 documents they have to process, it's going to make it hard for them to interact with you and really want to spend that time. And then another huge one is, do their ideas feel accepted or at least not ridiculed? So if I open up to you, are you going to criticize my thinking? And so this is a huge one. And on that vein, I wanted to introduce vulnerability as a potential hack. Gee, what guys, you know what? I sure just can't figure out what's going on here. I feel kind of dumb. Try that out and see what happens. If you think in terms of things you don't do well, I have a feeling, and I will suggest that I've seen that vulnerability is actually a hyper powerful thing to get you in better rapport, because you're saying, hey, look, I'm not Superman, and you don't. And back to that veneer, I'm not Superman, so that allows them to kind of reduce their mask a little bit too, right? And then the next thing I wanted to touch on briefly is the behavioral change stairway introduced by Dan. Thank you so much, by the way, Dan, for bringing this to me. This one was a game changer.
No problem. Just thank Wikipedia, all the free stuff.
Absolutely. This one is fantastic because it gives you a kind of a roadmap, if you will. If you're trying to get where you're trying to go in terms of, let's say you want to sell something, or you want the city council to adopt your new zoning regulation, this is a framework to think of. And so instead of jumping right to the idea, which I'm notoriously bad at, I'm trying to go straight to influence if I do that, right? Hey, my idea is great. Please do what I say. Okay. Well, as you can see there, I've skipped 2 steps by doing that, haven't I? I skipped the empathy and understanding and the trust and rapport. So in order to get to that influence, I'm going to suggest that investing time in the empathy and the trust and rapport stage are really impactful in trying to get there. And then the next question is, how do we do that? And for those of you who aren't familiar with Black Swan methods, I'll cover it real briefly here. Paraphrasing is just in your own words. What did they just say in my own words? Probably the one that carries maybe the most freight is labeling. It sounds like you're upset, or it sounds like you have a plan, or it seems like you've been disappointed, and you can even go so far as to talk about the elephant in the room. It seems like you don't trust me, or something along those lines. And by labeling emotion, you take down the emotion and give you a shot at moving toward the rapport. And then finally, summary is essentially just a paraphrase plus a label, essentially. So you get to kind of wrap it all up just to show, and your objective to get in the summary is to say, you want them to hear, hear them say, that's right. And a special note for my assertive twins out there, consider suspending your ego for a period of time and see how your outcomes change. I've noticed as I've studied and practiced the stuff, the less I'm concerned about my ideas and pushing my ideas and selling my ideas, but more suspend that, turn that off, invest in tactical empathy, invest in empathy. Your results will change. I can guarantee you it's a different world almost. It's kind of unbelievable. Something I wish I knew yesterday, right? And guys, now we'll move on to the small talk aspect of it. I wanted to introduce a couple of small talk suggestions and say, well, we can do small talk like, hey, how are you? Like, you've heard that question 1,000 times, right? And think about maybe a couple different ways to maybe get a little bit better small talk going. Like, imagine going up to a barista at a coffee shop and saying, hey, what's going on? Hey, the typical thing. But then your first real question is, what's the best thing to happen to you today? Feels differently, doesn't it? Doesn't feel so like the rote, trite process, does it? And then the next one to maybe try and consider is observing something observational. Hey, that's a really sharp jacket you've got on today. Where'd you get that? Those kind of compliments, if you've noticed, if you've ever used them, they hit really hard for some reason. And so wanted to suggest those and offer those. And then finally, you can even remotely say this is an accurate statement, permit me to say, it seems like you're having a lot of fun today. And if that's true, then like, yeah, it's been a great day, and get someone opening up and getting into that, that frame of mind. All right, guys. The next thing I wanted to cover with you is a really, really fantastic set of big talk questions. And what I mean by big talk is you're wanting to move beyond just the basic, social greeting and just the basic stuff. You really, it's like, say, for example, a negotiation partner, for example, and you want to get to know them a little bit more and find out what's driving them. These are excellent sources of questions you can ask. And this is where I hopefully get a chance to role play a little bit with the guys in it today. Is we'll test this out and see what we think. So, Dan, would you mind coming onto the stage and I can see how this lands? Dan, I'm curious, if you were stranded on a desert island but could bring 2 people with you, who would you take? And not sure if he heard me. Looks like we have some problems with your audio, Dan. Not hearing you. Yeah, you're unmuted, but I can't hear the audio.
You hear me now?
Yeah, now you're good.
Right away, I would take Elon Musk, and I would probably take my wife.
Good answer. That'll keep you from sleeping in the doghouse tonight, right? This
is recorded.
Yeah, this is recorded. Awesome. But did you notice how quickly we got to spill some beans there real quickly? And with even a simple question like that, we got to know a little bit about Dan a little bit there, didn't we? Think about that for a second. If someone mentions Elon Musk, they must be really interested in success and accomplishment, right? Or you can definitely explore that, and that gives you a huge trail at which you could follow, and think about that in terms of doing it that way. And Dan, how did that feel when you were answering the question?
I went to like a nice place in my brain.
It felt comfortable and you didn't feel threatened. It was easy and it felt good to talk about.
Yeah, to me, it was not personal.
Yeah. So again, it's not a digging, prying question, which
no,
you can.
It's something I would have on my Facebook page, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's about calibration too, guys. That's again, a kind of a component of calibration, like knowing how deep you can go when is a good component of that. And again, that's something I think you learn over time. But these are fairly benign. I think overall, this is a great set of questions I discovered to help you do that.
Is this from Ask Powerful Questions?
No, this is actually from Igor Ledowski's hypnotic rapport deck is what it's called. And these are based on his ideas on how to get deeper into a conversation with someone.
This is also like the kind of a question that you ask. You wouldn't ask it straight away. Like there has to be some context, otherwise it's going to be weird.
Yeah, I agree completely, and that's a great point, Eugene. I didn't think I'd make that exactly clear. Is that this is in order chronologically, basically. So you do want to have that small talk component. And again, this is a great time, guys. If you'd like, we could practice this in Costa. If you'd like to pick a couple questions and see how we do.
Douglas, what are the chances you could probably zoom in?
Oh, sure.
The browser or somehow?
Yeah, let me zoom in here. Oh, that's the wrong way.
All right, I'll give it a shot. Is it just questions we make up, or is there?
Oh, yeah,
that's
sure.
why you're zooming in.
Yeah, you can use this set, or if you have another stock question you'd like to go deeper with, that's quite okay for sure.
See, I'm more of an improv question there. How would this one fall in there? Hey, Douglas, I'm just curious. What made you focus more on rapport building?
Ooh. And see, that's the kind of question that is like a fireworks. And talk about spilling beans. I'm prepared to give you a ton of information based on that. And so to answer the question, I'm really interested in sales, and in terms of it's really so important to building a business and a real estate business. So you have to be able to interact well with others and know how you're doing and build rapport quickly. And that's really why I decided to study this.
Would you say that humans can be predictable?
I think there are some, well, that's a loaded question. And I really personally think that yes and no. And then how's that for a waffling? But I really do think there is a baseline that most people are going to tend towards. So unless they're out of sorts or they've had an emotional event, they're going to kind of, I guess, tend to a median or a mean, I guess, of a baseline of behavior. So most people, if they're healthy, they're going to have the tribal drivers. They're going to have respect for some authority to some extent. But generally, yes, to a large extent.
So, Douglas, do you like what you do for a living?
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it? And yes, I love what I'm doing.
What do you like? What do you like? What do you enjoy?
The challenge of building large buildings and making something that lasts, and an enduring legacy, and hopefully a fair amount of affordable housing too. There's a huge affordable housing crisis, and to alleviate some of the housing struggle is impactful for me.
So I can see that you've overcome a lot of obstacles to get where you at. What were they? What did you learn?
Yeah, I have actually had a lot of turbulence along the way where you're trying to figure out, okay, what is my role on this rock, and how do I work well and play well with others? I tried the cubicle thing. That didn't work for me. I tried practicing law. Huge misstep in terms of who I am and what I need to do. And I always knew I loved real estate. So
it seems like you do like to take risks.
Yes,
well,
definitely.
I guess, like, where did you get that attitude from?
I'm not completely sure on that. I like to say it goes back to my distant relative, William Dow, in 1690s or so, took a boat over from England, and I feel like it's somehow in my DNA since then, I think. But lived in a farm community. Of course, farming is a business, and always surrounded by it. So I think there's always been that desire to have an entrepreneurial situation.
Wow. Well, yeah, I got a weird question for you if you're open to it.
Sure.
Well, if you were, let's say, stranded on a desert island, but could bring, let's say, two people, with you, who would you take? Who would you take?
Even though this is recorded and I know it's cheating, I do have to say my significant other. She's really pretty great. Just been a fantastic person to have around me. We share a similar sense of humor. And then the second person, boy, that one's where it gets interesting. I would probably say somebody like Charlie Munger, because he's a genius to me. And just having intellectual discussions with Charlie or somebody like that, I think would be fun.
Well, it sounds like intellectual discussions kind of really make you come alive.
Boy, it really does. I really enjoy that type of deep thought and really kind of delving into the who, what, why, when, and where aspects of everything. And Charlie likes to talk about mental models. I really think that's interesting. And so you think about philosophy too. Philosophy's been really helpful. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So is it something that you kind of always had, or this is something that you kind of cultivated?
I think so. I think really that's, I wasn't a great student in high school, but boy, once I got to college and got to explore on my own, I really went crazy and, tried engineering, and that wasn't a great fit. So I, moved over to economics and then eventually a law degree. So really, I do enjoy the intellectual side of things.
Well, that's it. That was a good exercise.
Right. You see how this can really open someone up, and you won't get everything, but you sure get some footholds onto, where do I go next? And I think that's for me a struggle sometimes when I'm just kind of meeting someone and I don't know them. It's like, well, what did I do from here? So I feel like these kind of questions that are kind of stock, if you will, these are good ways to, really, and I guess they used to call these icebreakers. I think these are great icebreakers.
Mm.
Costa, would you like to try with, oh, I'm sorry, Eugene, you had a question?
Yeah, I mean, like the one question in APQ, which I think is kind of universal for a lot of situations is, and I already asked you that. So Douglas, do you like what you do for a living, or do you like what you do in your free time? Do you like your physical shape or form? It doesn't really matter, right? And then when they say yes, oh yeah, I like it, or no, let's say yes. What do you like about it? What do you enjoy? It's just a quick, you don't listen to it. You just say, oh, really like, what do you like about it? What do you enjoy? Like it focuses them immediately into that area.
Yeah, I think those are excellent, by the way.
Hey, you know what I'm noticing pattern? Hit me like a lightning bolt. Sorry, couldn't help it.
No problem.
It's these are all about them and not you. Where do you come in? How about like, hey, if you can spend a day with me, what would we do? It just sounds weird, doesn't it? Like when you put you into it, like
it's like
I want to hear your example.
Didn't know we were going to have that kind of relationship. Okay. Right. So and I guess you take it that way. If you were in that circumstance, it's like these could be useful in the right, and again, calibration. So I think that's how you.
Hey Douglas, what kind of hobbies do you think I like?
I'm gonna guess you like filmmaking and podcasting.
See, that's easy because you know me.
Yes.
If you now, let's say a stranger asked you and you didn't know anything about them.
Yeah, and then this is where hobbies, where you can go down to the hobbies recreation questions. It's like, Dan, it's nice to meet you today. So I'm interested. What do you like to do for fun?
I like going and buying timeshares and on cruises.
Awesome. Cruises, huh? Where's your favorite? Is there a favorite location you'd like to go to?
Caribbeans. So, all the good food, nice weather.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Man, it's crazy. I never even been on a civilian cruise. I've been on a military ship and they're terrible. But I hear they got like balconies in the civilian ones and they treat you well.
Yeah. Not quite the choices in dining either, is it?
No. Have you been to one?
Yes, I did. I went to the Bahamas one time. Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, that's interesting. Fourth wall. Did you notice how I turned the question on you?
Yeah.
And you went with it. So that's my leading question is,
Yeah.
since it's about tuning into their radio station and they drag you into it like I just did,
Yeah.
you went with it, and that's something you would also do, like building their report, right?
I
Like,
think
hey,
so.
why not give you a little?
It seems like to me it would be weird if I didn't. So imagining if I didn't, if I
And we
blew
saw that
off.
today with Eli with
Yeah.
hey, are you a cop? We're here to help you. It's like,
What?
can you give me something like
Right.
just a little bit?
And talk about a rapport break, and that's one of the things we can also think of. What are things that break rapport? And I think that's one of them, by being non-responsive, or and even body language. If you're starting to turn away from them, and you're like, okay, you just gave me a signal you're not interested in hearing what I have to say. But you're exactly right. I think if it's a ping pong match, if you will, of some sort. Costa, would you like to practice with Eugene?
Yes, of course. Hi, Eugene.
Hi, Costas.
I was wondering what hobby makes you come alive?
Sometimes if it's Friday or Saturday evening, what makes me come alive is coming to negotiation practice sessions and just having a blast of my life.
Blast of your life?
Indeed. I mean, like sometimes when we have those scenarios and it gets weird and awkward, those are the most fun.
Seems like you have a great sense of humor.
Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, making fun of when pressure is there, this is a sure indication of humor. Do I agree?
I mean, humor always releases pressure. The humor itself could be quite pressurizing, but if it's done right, it's just going to release a lot of tension.
Yes. You like humor?
I like my work.
You do something to make it more better or more often?
Well, I suppose we always try to do things that make our life easier and better.
Is there something that you could teach me, perhaps?
Well, at this stage, Costas, it's already becoming a little bit weird. Like, I don't know where you're going with that. Like, are you wasting my time? Like, what's the context of that? Right. So you have to be very clear where it's leading. And because questions are...
I can be clear if you are interested. I'm terribly interested in humor, and since you feel in a strange situations and you like it and you have fun, I thought I'm sure I'm speaking to a person with a great humor, and I'm very curious to hear about him and understand the way he sees things. You feel it is something dangerous for you?
Dangerous? No, I mean, it felt like you're giving me a compliment. So thank you for that. I never considered myself to have a great humor. Maybe I just never heard it from outside thing. I do make people chuckle occasionally. So I guess that counts. But yeah, I mean, whatever you want to know, I'm here. I'm an open book. Ask away.
Okay. Can you remember something that you told that make the other chuckle? Just a bit. Just to understand you more.
Yeah, I like to say I love you.
to your enemies or what?
You got to cherish your enemies too. They have a place in your life.
Yes. Yes. It's, I guess.
That was my dry humor, Costas.
Yes, it has to be with the tone and the situation. It can make great laughs, of course. It could be excellent in a sitcom where of course the things are going, the steam is going up and up and up, and someone says, "I love you," which is very ridiculous, could bring a lot of laughs.
It could be. I mean, there was so much laugh. I mean, it feels like we reached a whole new level in comedy, like worldwide right now. I mean, there was so much love between Chris Rock and Will Smith. There was so much connection that they had to disconnect.
Yes. At one point, there was extra big connection. You know, the palm of the hand at his cheek. They are very well connected.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we all throw tantrum, you know, what is it? Tantrums, right? So that's what we saw, and some people think it was horrible. I think it was hilarious and part of a comedy. You know, gotta take it with the grain of salt, of course. But everyone's talking about it now. It's yeah, it's the part of a comedy world now.
All right, I'm going to hop in right there and ask Eugene, how did his questions land? Did they feel mostly natural?
Well, I mentioned to Costas when it started going south, like I didn't get what's behind those questions, right?
Right.
So, you know, yeah, there has to be a purpose for them or a context, like what is it that you're trying to explore? If you're just trying to kind of get your report, I think general questions like with an APQ, like do you like what you do for a living or whatnot, that opens a lot of doorways. And then you can just use some of the questions that you give here to kind of dive deeper and deeper into that, right? So
Right.
I also, in your line of work, like help me understand, I'm really curious, like are you more patient or kind of impatient with people?
You know
Right,
what
so
else
I
I
need-
think it's missing is what you said there is he's not using your own words. He's just going to the next question and he doesn't
Yeah.
bring any of your words along. So you're like, what are you going with this? I'm giving you words and you're just leaving it back there. I'm giving you more and you're leaving it back there.
Yeah. The hardest part is not with the person who's listening and answering to you and giving you open answers like we have right now. The hardest part is to establish rapport is with the person who is analytical and dry in their responses. You know, and you're not going to ask them these questions. It will not land. So these questions, most of them already presuppose that you have some sort of rapport established.
I think that's an
So-
interesting point. I think that the rubber wall, as we say, is a tough case, and I'm not sure I've even solved it myself. So I think that's a great one to move forward with. Is how do you get rapport with a rubber wall? And again, that might be the calibration. Is you're not. I don't know. Somebody doesn't want rapport with you, and they refuse to do it. It's like, okay, well that door is shut, and
You know, that comes down to Robert Cialdini's book Persuasion. Like, are they even persuaded before you came into that dialogue? Like, are you dress appropriate for the environment? See, then that goes into like some sort of conformity for sake of results. Unless you're a celebrity like Katy Perry and can just wear whatever.
right. I think that's an excellent point. Is maybe what you did ahead of time wasn't deemed as valuable, or there's a status problem too. Is am I viewed on the same level as they are, or do they view me as some kind of
Yeah, that's what Eugene I think was
Sweet.
gauging in that conversation. He's like, well, yeah, what's your level here?
Well, level and intentions. Level. Okay, like we this is practice session, so the resistance is already very low.
Right.
But what is the intention? You ask me those questions. You want the answers from me. How are you going to use those answers, right?
Yeah.
And so just rationalizing it happening quickly, like in the split of the moment, the split of the second, and that's what raises the resistance. And that's what you face with a lot of analytical drive people. Like the more you ask them questions, the more guarded they become.
The only questions analyticals like is, what all do you need to move forward? Because now they've thought about it. So yeah, that one's been the best. Oh, Jenny's calling. Be back.
Yeah, I mean, in sales conversation, what we've been exploring with the other group is like there are certain connection questions that you could use to connect them to the like the present situation. So if you're in a scenario where they can potentially require your help, right? You could ask like, hey, what type of help are you looking here? Like, or have you found what you're looking for, or are you still looking? Right. And then again, that has to be backed up by the context. Like, what's the context of the conversation, of the meeting, or wherever you find yourself to have this conversation. So like if it's in a bar, for example, it's just a thought, right? And you're meeting some random dude who's just like, holding the beer and looking around, and you're like, hey man, like, have you found the girl for tonight, or are you still looking? Something like this. Have you found that the one that kind of attracts your eye, or you're still looking? And then you can launch into like, oh, like, so what type of girls are you looking out for? And then if it's done in the right tonality with the right cadence, it's gonna land. And after that, the connection is already established. And after that, you can ask a lot of these questions, follow-up questions on the perspective, blah, 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 and anything. But you cannot really, after this question, ask, what would a perfect day look like to you?
Yeah,
it's just
I think you make a very, very, very good point, Eugene, which I didn't address and which I'm still struggling with myself, is the transitions from the very, very initial to the transition to big talk. And I think you make a great observation about that.
Well, the thing is, like, for example, our get a free coffee scenario. That's a kind of a challenging one, because how do you get this initial rapport going? Like, what would you start with? And Black Swan Group, they saying like, oh, you start with like, is it, and I think it's a great line, is it, a busy day, a bad day? Or like, looks like you had a horrible day. Oh no, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling fine. Like, okay, it looks like you're enjoying your job. Like, what do you like? What you're doing? And even then, it's still some sort of a disconnect. It's still, the intent is not clear.
Right.
So with the coffee scenario, it's kind of, I don't know, there has to be more lubricant inserted in between somewhere. Like, there has to be a better way to connect with the person. And that's why I think the story lends well. Hey, just a quick thing. I mean, I just watched this documentary, I just listened to this news, and they were saying that, everyone in coffee shops get a free coffee every day, every time. Looks like you already had yours today. And that installs a lot of things there already, like to talk about. And depending on how they respond, you're going to have clues on where to take it next. So one of those elicitation techniques, I think, fits right in into those rapport building things. So rather than maybe just relying on questions as a crutches, if you convert it to kind of asking labels, and then make it a little story to give it a background. Now, I just heard this crazy idea the other day on the YouTube or whatnot, that a lot of coffee shops, if you're talking about, are you more patient or impatient with people? A lot of baristas in the coffee shops are like really crazily impatient with customers who are giving them trouble.
Yeah.
You look like you had a lot of experience with that. And that's it, you wait for response. So this is just some of the ideas that's running through my.
Yeah, I think those are great. Those are great ideas. Really do. Costa, any thoughts on transitioning from small talk to big talk?
I'm the worst person to transition from small talk to big talk. It's, I am here to learn such things. That's why I'm in this group, because I'm the worst possible person.
I'm with you. That's why I wanted to do a seminar.
I have the easy way. They come to my seminar, so I speak about hard and deep talk directly. That's why they came there. So it's easy. But going slowly and so on, especially small talk, I'm as bad as it can be anyway.
No, I sure appreciate that. Dan, have you had any good transition questions from small talk to big talk that you work with?
Well, Uh, yeah, I would say I always consider talking family to be big talk. Weather, small talk. And a part of me, as an assertive, I really don't like small talk. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
I prefer you just jump in the deep end, go for it. But, you know, I don't know, working with wealthier people like the NAPQ sales folks, they say they'll go dark if they're stonewalling you. They'll say, oh, you don't want to take care of your health. Like, hey, what happens if you die in 5 years, 10 years? How much money are you losing that you could be working? So yeah, $500 doesn't seem that bad now, or 5,000. See, I'm still thinking small.
No, I like that, and I think also this is where with a maybe assertives might be great to hop right into the calibrated questions. I don't know. Clay, you have a question?
Just a comment, just the phrase when you're in small talk of maybe saying, you know, like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, nice weather. Yeah. Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Something like that for the transition.
Even getting like a permissive, I don't mean to be intrusive or what. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I probably picked it up from somebody.
Somebody we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And all right, guys, just real quick before we wrap up here, I did want to talk real quickly about rapport killers. A big one I think that I've seen is, of course, politics can be toxic. Again, there's a time and a place for it if that's your thing. But if you're, again, calibration. You know, what is your objective at that particular event? Bad body language. Actually, if you're in a corner and you're sulking, you're like this, you're probably not going to get much interaction, right? People are probably going to leave you alone. They don't want that energy from you, right?
That goes with body odor too.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Would agree completely. Religion is another one. You have to be really careful. These are, you can go there, but I say handle with care. Big one I struggle with sometimes. I got 1,000 things going on at every given moment. So I'm thinking in terms of, what's next, and losing focus in a conversation can really kill rapport quickly because you're just not, you're tuned out and you're not listening. That can be really bad for that. So it's just a reminder to stay present and stay engaged and work on that. And again, it can be a battle at times if it's, you get off on a topic you're really not personally interested in, but you like to keep rapport. It's worth it to try to stay in the pocket, as we say. And then this one's a big one, trauma dumping. Now, I want to be clear about what I'm saying about this. It's important with close friends to share your wins and losses. So I don't really mean that. Trauma dumping, I feel like, is, and again, it's a calibration thing. If you barely met someone and they start telling you about, I was attacked by and mauled at a bear at an early age, and therefore I hate bears, or, I hate circus clowns. They scare me and I don't like clowns. And they talk about, for 30 minutes about how it makes them feel. This is a very negative vibe and should be avoided. I feel if you're dumping this stuff and also with a bunch of repetition, if you keep bringing up the same topic over and over again, it can be a real rapport killer, I think. Oh, and I didn't want to leave we're about to wrap up, guys, but I didn't want to leave without the automatic rapport tricks that you can do before you go into the meeting. This actually got out of order in the mind map. The greetings earthling routine is basically taking your hands, and you can't quite see, but basically as you approach someone and having your hands palm up. So like if you're in a group having your palms up in a wide open, non-threatening, so they can basically see you don't have a weapon, is actually technically why it's important. But if you go into to meet someone and you approach with your arms open and say, "Greetings, Earthling," something like that, or a friendly, humor. This is where humor can come into play. And also, to wrap up, matching and mirroring is a huge hack that you can use to begin rapport. Matching their body language, and you can actually you don't want to do it crazy a lot, but by, like, if they touch their forehead, you can in a couple seconds touch your forehead, for example. And again, you don't want to do this like an obnoxious amount, so you want to practice it and see what sets off a red flag. But typically, if you have a same posture and body language, and also recommend if someone's telling a story and you lean in a little bit, that tends to help the rapport. If they lean in and you lean in to match them to hear the story and whatnot, also can help. And also, you can also with tonality, if they're up here, like there's varying theories on this. I won't go too deep in the weeds on this, but the Tony Robbins theory is, if somebody's like, "You know what, I've had it. This is terrible. I can't believe they did this to me." And you can go in and say, "You know what? They did that to you? What?" And match them up where they're at, and then you can pace them down. So that's one thing you can try if someone's really upset. I haven't personally tried that, but I think it's an interesting theory of matching and mirroring to kind of bring them in and slow them down. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really wanted to
Just to say a thing, one
Sure.
thing only. One that breaks rapport is speaking about yourself. If you do it for a long time, it will break your rapport, of course.
I think that's a great idea. I didn't leave in there. So I think that's right back to that whole concept of suspending your ego to the extent possible really helps. Now, again, you do need to give a little bit of detail to keep things going, but you're right. If you just spend the whole time, let me tell you about what I did. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's also another aspect to this. Like, sometimes you have to take control and interrupt or kill rapport without actually killing it. So sometimes someone's just gonna give you a brain dump of some of the ideas and it's going nowhere, and they're just so enthusiastic about this, and it feels like you're killing the time. It's just not productive towards to where you want to go. So how do you kill rapport without killing the relationships?
That one's another great one, which I don't have a great lot of distinction on that either. I think that's one we should keep in mind and might want to research a little bit. To me, it is maybe some sort of pattern interrupt is maybe good for that, where you can.
Well, hold on, Douglas. You said something important there. That's it. I just interrupted you. And if I make it relevant to what you were saying a minute ago, 50 seconds ago, something relevant to the conversation, I'm not destroying anything. I'm not destroying rapport. In fact, I'm showing you that I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know more, but about something specific.
Well, I think that's right.
Yeah. So just saying, hold on. That's right. Just hold on a second. You said something important there. Give it a second of a pause, and then just redirect conversation wherever you want to redirect it. So this is one of the, and again, like open palm gestures, that works wonders. Like, so you just put your hand in front of the camera and say, hold on. Like, you said something really important there, and I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
And yeah, that will take care of the most of the cases.
I think that's right. I really do. Okay, guys, before we wrap up here, any questions, comments, observations about where we went today and what we should do if we pursue this line of questioning?
Well, I mean, thank you, Douglas. I think you're off to a great start. This is the first session?
Yeah, this is the first time I've not done anything with this, yeah.
Great, so you already have a lot mind mapped here. So I hope it's only going to get bigger and bigger with time. And, we can definitely add some of the things like, today, like how do you interrupt report, for example, right? Something to add. What are some of the, tips and tricks on how to start the report? At least some variations.
Yep.
Right.
Transitions. That's right. Transitions is a good one. Yep.
And maybe role playing with some of the tougher cases, like,
Ooh, the rubber wall.
Get Jonathan here.
Actually, I think Florin was tougher when I did the airport scenario with Florin. It was like, oh man, he did not give me anything.
Yeah, Florin will be great here too.
Yeah.
Like I think he's a perfect example of test subject, right? To experiment with this report building things.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea of okay, our objective is get rapport and just do scenarios of okay, how do we crack this nut? Metaphorically.
Yeah. I mean, all of us, then yourself, Costas, you just ask any questions, you're going to have good open answer because people are willing to share here and open-minded and, curious about each other's opinions. But some of the analytical reserved type, it is just a different ball game.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, get an accommodator in the room and see how they do and see how they fare also is always interesting, right?
Yeah, pair up Jonathan and Florin.
Yeah.
And let's see how how soon they're going to be drinking beer together. That's what I'm
yeah.
about.
Yeah. Interesting case. Yeah, but I appreciate that idea. I think that's a great topic. It's like, okay, how do you scale the sheer cliff of the analytical? That's a fantastic idea.
From what I heard from Black Swan Group is that don't ask too many questions. I think it's on one of the cheat sheets or some of the diagrams that they have. For analytical types, you don't ask questions. You use statements and maybe asking labels and use more data-driven kind of responses. Yeah. Well, anyways,
I was reading a research study that said 99% of analyticals agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for attending today. And again, we will dive down this road and see how we can build better rapport.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Douglas, and everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.